Hey there, cats and kitties. I am the Blues Man, John A. Blues, and this is going to be a brief little review for Natsuyuki Rendezvous, Episode 4. Now, I got a big kick out of this episode because essentially we're seeing Hazuki and Hiroka on their second official date, and this one, it's away from the flower shop. Her ghostly husband, Atsushi, is nowhere to be seen, and it's basically Hazuki putting his moves on Hiroka. He wants to make her feel the happiness she felt, at least the happiness he believes she felt, in the image he saw on the cell phone of Miho, her sister-in-law, in the last episode. And we know that sort of while we're following these characters back at the flower shop, Atsushi's probably depressed and sad. He's really gotten to the point where he wants to be with her again, maybe, or he doesn't want to move on until he gets to say goodbye. But he has a conflict of emotions, whereas he was just, saw fit to basically hang around. Now he wants to actually get active in keeping Hazuki away from his wife. And it's very interesting how this is all playing out. Of course, the relationship between Hiroka and Hazuki gets really interesting at the theme park that they go to, which is Hanayashiki. And I think it's really interesting that there were some, verbal sort of revelations. There's one point where, all through that day that they're out and they're in this theme park, they're trying out various different rides, and there are certain things that Hazuki doesn't want to go on, and that reminds Hiroka of her husband's not wanting to go on certain rides and this and that and the other thing. And there's one point where they get on this like high-rise ride, and she's remembering having been on it with her husband. She remembers when they want to go to like a haunted house kind of ride, that just like Hazuki, her husband, didn't want to go and, deal with it. Of course, Hazuki's reason is because he's dealing with a ghost every day. But there's one point when they're on another high-rise ride, or they're about to get on it, and she's remembering back to her husband yet again saying, I'll watch from down here, you two go, meaning her and the sister-in-law Miho. And she actually, sort of speaking out of the memory of this, says, I was going to leave you there anyway. That's how much I wanted to go on this ride, maybe. Or maybe, she had mixed emotions about this man she married. I don't know. I think that's a very sort of bomb drop revelation for her to say, I was going to leave you behind anyway to go on this ride. It can be taken a number of different ways, I think, especially with the fact that she does seem to be so wanting of this relationship with Hazuki, yet she's very timid about it, and she's very reserved. She doesn't seem to want to jump off the platform, so to speak, into a full-on relationship as yet. But Hazuki is not one to be outdone. He will keep, sort of pestering her, and she even comments to that effect when they're on the ride. He grabs her hand, and he's talking, about how much he loves the roughness of her hand. They smell like sunshine. And, essentially he's just making his move. And I think it's interesting that we constantly hear the thoughts of these characters as well. Like, as he's sitting there and she's marveling at the view, he's marveling at her earrings. And I don't know what significance that has, except to say, it's kind of like one of those things when you are in love with somebody, you are in love with the things that they like and they have, and it's weird that way. But the biggest thing comes, once they're off the ride and they end up, because the day is so hot, it's very hot outside, they get some like Italian ices kind of thing, and they're sitting at a table, and he just goes for broke and he says, I think we should have sex. And I almost spit my soda out because I was taking a swig at that point. And I was like kind of shocked that he was very, forward in that moment. And that essentially was what won the day, at least getting her to laugh hysterically and feel happy. But then she says, no, that's definitely out of the question. And his world just comes crashing down. And where this all basically leads is a very interesting prospect, something that I was really peeved we didn't get to see in the last episode when it was first mentioned. And that is, after they go home for the evening and she basically talks Suzuki into being shown how to open the flower shop, he goes off, excusing himself that he's going to go buy some smokes, and he ends up getting himself drunk, plastered, because he's so nervous and frustrated. And when he comes back, he's so out of sorts that when Atsushi says, can I borrow your body? he agrees. Hazuki agrees. And so we finally see this transition, and it's a very almost unearthly, almost biblical. It's like an angel comes down with superheated light and goes into Hazuki. And so when Roka comes back down trying to figure out where he is, he's sitting on the floor, but it's not Hazuki. It's a Shushi now. And when he gets up and he's like talking to her, he's like, wow, it's so weird to call you manager. You know, he's used to calling her by name. But then again, he's not used to even being heard because he's been a ghost so long. And then he breaks down yet again and says, you know, I'm in a flesh and blood body. And I guess it's that, you know, realization that I can touch my wife again. I can really interact with her again. I can be with her again. And so we leave off there, and there's just a myriad of questions that are tugging at me by the end of this episode, as far as where we're going to go with this story. And so whereas the last episode I was happy watching, but I was left a little ho-hum by the end of it, this one just perked me up. I was riveted with this episode from beginning to end, and where we left it, I am so piqued for the next episode. I can't wait to see how this gets moved further by that episode. So if you've seen the episode, I'd love to hear what you thought of it. Please post that in the comments below or as a video response. And yeah, that's going to be pretty much it for me on this episode. Loved it, and I'll catch you all later. Peace.